the last discussion the board had on this topic was October 10th, and we got through the chart that staff had provided to the board as kind of a talking points for the discussion. The part that we didn't get to is how the board wants to fill vacancies, the advertising, appointments, selection process that we want to use. And Trustee Hansen sent something out earlier today to the board that we can also discuss as part of this discussion. And as part of that chart that was provided on October 10th, it had some just draft ideas on ways that we could fill vacancies as far as schedule 30 days prior to a vacancy, or we would advertise, and then applications that have to be received within 14 days of interviews and so forth. And I think Trustee Hansen has an alternative idea as far as selection. So why don't we start there?
Yeah, I was hoping, I have a question, and I was
Okay.
going to ask if we could start there on that whole appointment process. First, the question is, we have the Planning Commission, we have the Historical Commission, and then we have advisory committees. I understand the Planning Commission called a commission, but why is the Historical Commission called a commission and not the other advisory committees, or why isn't the Historical Commission called an advisory committee?
Well, the Planning Commission is by statute. The Historical Commission was just the name that was chosen. It's not by statute or anything. At the time we formed it, that was the name that was chosen. More than, I mean, that's the simplest answer. Yeah.
Okay, so by being a commission, it wouldn't prevent the Historical Commission from abiding by the same rules that we set up for? It
No,
wouldn't, or?
They should be by the same rules.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about the Planning Commission? Can the Planning Commission go by the same rules as well, or are they kind of a different animal?
Generally, the Planning Commission is a different animal because it's a statutorily created body, and
Okay.
it has its own rules and its statutes unless you change them directly.
But
Okay.
It doesn't have any rules for how to conduct a meeting. So if we
True.
set up rules.
Yes, we can do that as well. Yes.
Okay. So can we start with that?
With your
proposed-
hand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think this kind of encompasses everything. We brought this up briefly at the meeting that we had with the chairs of each advisory committee. We didn't talk too much about it. For the most part, I think that people agree with it, but there are still some concerns about some of the issues that might come up. I know that Chair D'Souza had said that she was concerned that this group might screen out potential candidates, and that is certainly not the purpose of this committee. This committee would be more inclusive, and I would think that we would get more people involved by putting this in place. But really, it's just to minimize the time between vacancies and when they're filled. That's what this committee would produce. It would reduce or eliminate confusion from the whole process, and it would also, I believe, reduce the burden on staff by having this group together. So I hope that everybody had a chance to read through this. I know it was just sent today, but I'd like to have some discussion on some of these points and hopefully clarify any concerns that might come up, because I think this would be a good tool to have moving forward. It's not going to be perfect in the beginning, but I think over 6 months to a year, I think that it would be a really good tool to have in place.
And so just reading Sandy and yours comments, she said she was interested in having a subcommittee of the board of 3 people, and I think yours was basically the liaisons to the group, which I think is most everybody.
Yeah, I figured that would get, by having the liaisons, that would have representation from each one of the advisory committees. But it certainly could be any number of individuals.
And I don't like the idea of a smaller committee than, or panel than a little larger, and I don't mean really large where it's ineffective, but if it's too small, it would or could occur in the future, be not just limiting, but also it could create the illusion of handpicking. And that's what we do not want. We want to create where it is a democratic process of everyone that comes forward, and more more than less. People who are able to be able to look at the applicants and
Sure. Yeah, I thought by having each one of the liaisons on there, that's a wide variety of individuals. But also, part of this process, the strategy, one of the strategies is that we would communicate on a regular basis with the chairs of the advisory committees. And the liaisons are somewhat intimate with the group, so they would know if there's going to be somebody that's planning on stepping down, that could be brought to the committee to discuss, and then we could prepare for interviews and so forth moving forward.
So what's the number that you're thinking about?
I had felt just liaisons from each one of the committees. No, there's actually 5, including the Planning Commission.
okay,
That's a sizable number, that's good.
that's good. Yeah, I thought
I
you
think
would.
at 5, though, my only thought would be that probably you should just have the whole board. I mean, the difference between 5 and 7.
It certainly could, because we have the Finance Committee, we've got the Traffic and Safety Committee, that are subcommittees of the board, and those are just 3 on each, correct?
Yes.
So, but we still have, in those meetings, we still have many times the entire board will participate, and the entire board, of course, is always welcome to participate. So it really could be any number.
I mean, I'm not on the budget committee, but I don't feel uncomfortable that I'm not in there, because I trust the other board members, and I'm on the safety and transportation, and I hope you guys feel comfortable that, with Deb and I and Sandy, that if you need anything, I mean, we bring whatever we learn to the board anyway,
Right.
so I don't know if we need to have all 7.
Okay.
I'm okay with 5, I guess, what I'm saying.
What about any other concerns that there might be on the goals or the strategy, how we go about the committee?
But-
Elia had responded saying that he felt once a month was too much,
Yeah,
perhaps once a quarter.
Because I don't think we have vacancies that often. I think if we had a meeting once a quarter, that would cover it for the most part.
I would say that we would, if we move forward with it, that we set it up as a once-a-month meeting, and then if we don't have any applicants come through, we certainly can postpone the meeting until the following month. But just one of the things we wanted to do is keep in touch with applicants on as regular basis as possible. So if somebody applied on the 1st of the month, we wouldn't see them until 3 or 4 weeks later. If we waited till once a quarter, we wouldn't see them for 2 to 3 months later. And I think the more that we communicate with individuals, the more that they feel like they're included in the process. So I think the more communication we have with them, the better. But again, that can be up to the group. Whoever makes up the committee can decide how often that they want to meet. This is just a starting point.
Any
If
thoughts
you-
on the?
I would only suggest if the board's going to meet monthly, that you have a designated day, so that you don't have to try to find a day that works for everybody each
Right.
month.
Yeah, I think I'd indicated that they would meet the
fourth.
fourth Monday of every month.
So my only
It
thinking
seems a
about this,
lot to me, that's all.
yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Are we trying to solve not having speedy appointments? Are we trying to, what it is exactly? So, it seems like, from my perspective, when you identify when a opening is available, then that's probably the time to meet. Because the problem is, if say you get a pool of applicants, you have no idea if they're still interested down the road and to what committee they might be interested in. So that's my only issue.
That was, again, one of the strategies in here is to keep an open dialogue with every one of the applicants. So once they're interviewed, that doesn't mean we wouldn't communicate with them until a vacancy opened. We would keep in touch with them on a regular basis and encourage them to come and participate in some of the meetings, but also in some of the other volunteer projects or efforts. They could be a part of that, too. So there'd be constant communication.
Would applicants come forward if there's no vacancies? I mean, why would they come forward?
Well,
There's no-
I think there would be if there was on the website and the newsletter, if there's a dedicated space that was always calling for applicants and it's always in front of them. Somebody might say, "Oh, I've been meaning to do that," and they might put an application through. If on the website or the newsletter, there's a link to the application, they could easily apply.
I guess, I don't know, I don't mean to be devil's advocate here. I just think it should be the other way around. If there is an opening, then we publicize it, then we have, the minute that we know there's even going to be an opening, let's say we know it 2 months ahead of time, we start publicizing that, we get a pool of potential
Well,
candidates.
we wouldn't be in any better position than we are now. I mean, how long if I remember correctly, aren't there or vacancies on ProStack now? Aren't there a couple of
Yeah.
vacancies?
And RCAC as well.
So if we would have had a pool of people available that we've already screened, interviewed, then we
But
could
for which
easily fund
position,
it.
though? We don't know what, I guess that's the issue. Is it ProStack, is it RCAC?
Any
is
of
it
them.
OSAC? I mean, what?
This group would interview every applicant that came through. We would let them know. We would also create job descriptions and overviews of what the committees do, and make sure they're well informed of what the committees do and what's expected. And then we could inform them. If we felt that through that process that they maybe were applying for the wrong committee, we could say, are you interested in RCAC? And here's what RCAC does. Is this something that you'd be interested in?
I thought the board was deciding what the committees do, not a subgroup.
No, absolutely the board would.
Well,
Here,
we're-
I see
as-
this, do you mind? One quick second. I see this more as
Not a
a
quick second.
marketing tool to kind of market what the town is doing and have good communications with residents. And maybe we don't have it every month, but maybe it's every other month, or, how other committees meet, where some committees meet the odd months of the year, or whatever it is. But there could be a happy medium between the two. I like the idea, in other words, that you're kind of marketing yourselves, the town, and what we do, and what our committees do, and that we are encouraging volunteers.
Yeah, I didn't think of it as a marketing tool. I thought of it more of as a management tool.
I agree, but I also see the marketing in it.
Sure.
Matt, you were going to say something?
Well, I mean, we are trying to determine the organization framework that we want to have for the committees, but we also need to have a set process in place for vacancies that we,
Right.
because there's been some confusion in the past on what process we want to use.
Yeah.
I would-
And the larger issue, too, is if we've had vacancies open for quite a while, how come nobody's coming forward?
Well, we have so
It's about marketing,
No.
in my opinion. How are we getting that information out?
we have.
It's more than that.
So currently, we have 2 vacancies on ProStack. We have 4 applicants. Those, so we have right now, we're trying to get those interviews scheduled for January 9th for the board. And then we have a couple applicants for RCAC as well, for those vacancies. So we have people
we have
interested.
enough. Okay.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we can do is just, like on the planning commission page, we have just a standard advertisement on that page that if people are interested in serving in the planning commission, to contact, I think it's Beth, the assistant town manager. So we can, and if people submit their application, we can tell them, well, we don't have a vacancy right now, but we'll keep it on file, and if one comes up, then we'll contact you, see if you're still interested, and set you up for interviewing. So, I think we can do something like that for all the committees for sure.
Yeah, I saw one of the applicants the other day at Superior Elementary School, and he said, I put an application in, but I haven't heard anything back. What's going on? Is there openings, or what are we doing? So I think that there alone, he's not being communicated to. I'm sure Martin and his staff have communicated one way or the other,
Right.
but they don't feel like they're being included, I don't think. I think that this would resolve that, and they would feel included.
I would definitely like to see us move towards a specific time of the year that we have these openings. In other words, stagger them in such a way that they come in the fall and the spring, and that's when we know we have it, and we know that, the residents know that they're available in the fall and the spring, and they can look forward to that. And it's, Boulder County does that, Lafayette does that, and you just know as a resident that you'll see in their newsletter or whatever on their website that it's coming up in the fall.
Although some people could choose to, bow out at any given time throughout the year.
That's true. That is true.
That might be the exception.
Yeah, those
But
are
that-
those are the situations we get into where you may have a vacancy for a couple months when somebody resigns unexpectedly.
Right.
It's the
But if you're doing
reappointments
it-
and renewals are easier to handle because you know they're coming up.
But if you're doing it in the fall and the spring, that's every 6 months, you're not really vacant for very long.
depending on, I mean, if they resign, you know, yeah,
We're not
could
doing
be
this.
6 months with
Okay.
you got a vacancy, so.
It would be nice not to have months and months go by with vacancies, I guess, if you look
That's
at the
right.
big picture, and that's what you're saying, we're trying to avoid
Yeah.
that. So if there's a vacancy, there's already been a pre-screened process, somebody's ready to step in.
We've got a pool of people now, it sounds like 6.
Right.
And I'm wondering how many of those 6 have attended any of the advisory committee meetings that they're interested in, and how often they've been communicated to. And that's no fault of anybody's, but if they were involved in the process early on, right when they were interested, then it would have been reviewed with them that they should participate in the meetings in some way. And then maybe in some of the other volunteer efforts within town. So this process does that.
Just in terms of the times to do interviews, so if you look at when people's terms expire, it seems like you'd want to do this in winter and spring because there's planning commission, their terms are in April, and then the other ones are generally in June and July. So I would think that you'd want to schedule it in January and April or something like that, just based upon the timing of the appointments.
Yeah. June, we've got June and April. July. But, I mean.
From my
we can
perspective, I mean,
change
we can
this.
do, we could certainly try this. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, we've done this interview style forever, basically there's an opening, then we call for applications, and then we interview them, then we appoint them, but.
And I don't think
We
that
could
process
certainly-
would change. I mean, we'd still come through the board eventually for a final interview.
No, I'm just saying, in terms of having the pool of applicants prior to having openings, so. I mean, certainly can try it and see how things go, and if it doesn't work, then go to Plan A or Plan C or whatever. I don't feel strongly about it.
Okay.
My question about this, because we almost tried something like this that led to confusion when we thought we had some applicants pending, and then we had a surprise vacancy and we used one of those applicants. Led to a lot of confusion about, well, we need to advertise. So we're gonna advertise when we have a pool, unknown, unexpected vacancy, and we also going to advertise and wait.
I think this would not lend itself to that.
That's it. As long as we all agree with that, we're going with the pool then, and if we have people ready and willing, then we are ready to proceed. I'd be happy with that.
If we ever saw that our pool was starting to get
Sure.
fairly small, then of course we'd step up the advertising, but I hope that we
You're
would
right.
dedicate a spot to the website and the newsletter, so it'd be ongoing advertising, very visible.
Just so we all agree in what we're doing. That really is all I care about, so we all agree on what we're doing.
The topic got to him,
That's right. Just getting water.
No, I agree with you too.
And there's, like the planning commission, that's a fairly large commission, and it has to have a specified quorum to do business. And if the numbers drift down, that specified quorum, I think, is still 5, no matter what. If I remember correctly, so you can't linger a long time without having a full commission. And they have to do certain business for the town when things come up. So
Yeah.
that's one that we really have to be ready to go on when vacancies happen. Is that-
I have had small towns where we just can't find anyone to sit on it. So there is no planning commission police, as I tell them. There's no one out there forcing you to draft people, but it is helpful to get people in as soon as possible, especially if we have people willing to do it. So.
So, and does town staff have an automated reminder to themselves of, when appointments are coming due for renewal or not? How do you?
That's called Phyllis.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we want to know that, so that we can ask several months, maybe 2 months in advance. Are you planning on trying to, do you want to re-up, or is that going to be an open spot? And how is that?
Yeah,
happen.
so, right now, as you saw with that list, each of the committees has a different appointment time frame. I mean, ProStac and OSAC, I think, are pretty consistent, but Planning Commission is a little different. So the question is, when we do these new resolutions for each of the committees, do we want to set a standard month of the year that we have renewal? So it's, we're not guessing, well, does this committee have it in April and this committee has it in June, and just set one standard month that we know all the.
So
make it
there's
easier.
1, 2, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. I mean, basically, that would be one a quarter. If we could align them to one of those appointments per quarter, then that way you don't have to interview 100 people at the
Right.
beginning of the year to try to figure out who you're going to appoint.
Okay.
So, I don't know how people
I
feel
like
about that.
No, I like that. Jim? Are we open to meeting? It's kind of informal.
Yeah,
Working.
makes no difference to me. So, but that would, so I don't know if people have a strong feeling about when when the committee's appointments would come due, but maybe staff could take a crack at trying to put them in once a quarter, roughly, given that there's 5 committees. That doesn't perfectly
Yeah,
work.
we'll have
but-
one quarter where there's 2, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the way I see it, it looks pretty easy to like put it in, summer and winter, or.
If you want to do
something.
that, I mean, you could either
I
do,
mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but
We'll
every
take
6
a-
months instead of all over the map.
We'll.
why don't you give us some
Yeah.
ideas when it,
Okay.
when we're talking about this some more.
All over the map, I definitely wouldn't.
Yeah, no, but if it
No,
was like, 3, 6, 9,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
3, 6, 9, and 12, and
Change these 6s
Either
to
way.
7s or 7s to 6s. And
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wouldn't raise it, but the number 5 keeps getting raised, and I think that we're missing the economic committee, which, in all intents and purposes, seems to function to me much like one of the other advisory committees. It may not be a popular position, but I can't see a distinction.
Are you suggesting that we make it an advisory committee?
Suggesting that if
yeah, it seems like it probably makes sense to be an advisory committee.
We would, if that's what the board would like to do, we would, when
What are
we
we talking
do the other resolutions, we would just,
The
And I
economic
would take that
advisory.
right now, there's something in here that says that it's not to be considered an
it
advisory.
doesn't say anything about it. It just leaves it blank. It just says
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry, I'm looking at the ordinance that I drafted, which at your direction specifically says the finance committee, the transportation safety.
not finance. I'm not
No,
talking-
not finance.
We're talking the economic.
Economic-
Oh, I'm
Economic
sorry,
development.
I was confused, I thought you were talking finance.
Yeah, no.
So-
Yeah, sorry.
that's fine.
Okay.
There, yeah.
Okay.
Something to be considered, sure.
Could clarify everything. Because
Because what's the status now?
Unclear.
Holding pattern, I mean, there's not anything to do.
I mean, the next thing the group would have is this business retention policy that we're working on. They would look at that.
And so if that's what they're doing, I mean, if they're looking at town policy to make recommendations to the town board, then it seems like it's functioning as an advisory committee.
That's what I'm saying. That's yeah. It would. I'm okay with it. So we elevate it to an advisory committee.
I don't know if it's elevated or just changed.
Well,
It clarifies it.
It makes it, right,
Right.
exactly.
I think before that's done, it's worth having a conversation on exactly what the guidelines would be for them. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't have a full discussion on it.
When do you want to have that? I mean, I think we should get something done here tonight, so. Do you want to?
Well, we've got a half hour left, and I've got comments about the resolution for tonight, so I don't know if we're going to have that conversation tonight. I don't think
Well,
that'd be
we
fair.
can-
It's something we've got to prepare for.
I mean, we can do the resolutions, get the organization in place for all the other committees that are already, and then, I mean, we can come back to that one.
Sure.
It should all be treated as one, I think. I don't think we should do piecemeal.
Well, but if we're going to make an advisory committee, then we've got to set up its mission and its purpose and all that kind of stuff.
Its size.
And I don't think that's appropriate for tonight.
Okay.
But there's a general consensus that we should move in that direction, though.
I guess I think clarity
We're not
is,
weighing
I think
in
clarity
at
is
this
always
moment.
good, so.
I know there was
What's the detriment in nothing?
there was a consensus before that it shouldn't be. So now there's a consensus that there should be. Why did it change all of a sudden? So I would say that if that is a change of consensus, then let's sit and talk about it as a whole group. Let's not make this decision on the fly.
Okay.
And I would I would agree. I would suggest, I would hate for us to, I'd like to get through this for the advisory committees we have in place now, and then if we wanted to create a new advisory committee,
Then it
it'd
would
be
just-
simpler to do.
Right, then it would just fall under
'Cause you have the
these
framework
guidelines
in
and
place.
policies.
I just hope it doesn't get lost in, we're starting a new year and all that,
No.
it doesn't get postponed.
Well,
Because
let's
it's
say
going
It's
to
on
be-
the table now. I'd love to
I think
discuss
that
it.
they
So
could
just-
change it, in my opinion.
Well, it's,
I mean,
I think
But-
it's a good discussion to have
Yeah.
because that's an interest of mine and I know other board members, and we want to see economic development move forward. If that's the way to make it move forward, then I would love to have the discussion.
so let me ask you this, do you want to have this discussion at the retreat on the 30th?
Perhaps that could be a good discussion. I don't know.
or
Or
maybe
before
just
that.
have it as a work session in January, how about
Or a
that?
workshop? Those are the, I guess I don't want to go too much into the next year
No,
and
no,
we
no,
forget about it.
let's
so
do it in
if-
January.
No,
Okay,
as long
that's
as we
fine.
devote time to just that, I think that's great.
So other work session other than the 9th or the 23rd?
It wouldn't be the 9th.
So we got the 23rd or the retreat, so one of those two.
So
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
can I clarify what I think I'm hearing here? So with the economic EDRC and the historical commission, we're going to look at changing those to advisory committees. Am I correct?
Historical Commission is an advisory.
It just has a different title.
It does have the name,
Different
yeah,
title.
exactly.
Commission is-
But can we change it to
Yeah.
make it uniform?
But, I mean, does it have a policy that
Historic
is the
advisory.
same guidelines as
Advisory
this is going to be?
history.
Or
It's bizarre.
do we have to change that?
Doesn't make sense.
With each, so I think that the way this was planned, I think, is to have this ordinance that is in your packet be a framework for all of the advisory committees, including historical. Then, for each specific committee or commission, depending on what the name is, it would have its own establishing resolution that talks about the duties and things like that. And for the historical, one of the issues was whether or not people need to be residents. I remember that was one of the issues that came up. So what the ordinance says is that people need to be residents unless the establishing resolution for a particular committee or commission states otherwise. So in that case, you put it in the resolution establishing the historical commission that it can have non-residents on it. So that, I think that's set up to be a framework in the code and then do specifics in each resolution, establishing each separate commission.
Okay, so, moving forward here, are there other committees and commissions that we have that should follow this, such as the Transportation and Safety Committee?
No, those are
No
different.
board
Those are
committees.
different,
We're
yeah.
not
Right, but we
including board.
excluded committees, that's where I was confused before, I'm sorry. But yes, we excluded committees that were just made up of trustees.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
clarifying here.
Okay. So do you want to work through the ordinance?
Can I throw out one more thing? So in the future, any committee that we have that is just made up of board members or a subset of board members would not be falling under this policy.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So would
And does that
be?
mean conversely anything that is, I don't know, so what establishes what becomes one of these?
Everything else.
Okay.
The board, every advisory committee, the board
Yeah. I mean,
establishes the.
Right, if
I'm
we
just
have
trying to
people
make
that
this
are,
about as clear
Does
as
that be
possible.
long-term, short-term, you know,
In my
task
mind.
fund, task forces? I'm just curious about, I don't mean
I
to
guess it'd be
complicate things, I'm
depending on
just
how
asking.
formal it would be. I mean, you could do more committees by creating more resolutions to create them
Exactly.
Yep.
with a sunset in there if needed or whatever. Okay, so working through the resolution, is that a helpful way to move?
Sure.
Okay.
Jim, did you have?
Can I just make a quick comment?
Do you mind, because I'd like to hear what he has to say before I take off, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Jim Payne,
As you're leaving.
ProStack Chair, just a couple of quick comments. On the timing, you were understandably looking to sort of stagger the appointments of the different committees, but I think that's a great thing, as this is, of course, going to do, to have the discussion of the committees, because timing, I know in ProStack, and I think the same would be true for OSAC, we've got work plan cycles, we've got budget cycles, and election cycles now, and we need to kind of keep that in mind, so it can't be random. On the issue, I'm not going to get into the economic EDRC issue, but I do suggest that there might be different kinds of groups that could be carved out. Now, the Hodgson-Harris Reservoir Working Group, of course, that was jointly with the county, but we had representation from different committees, OSAC, ProStack, HOAs for that matter, and that was a very helpful process. So I think the working group was a good paradigm, if you will, that could be used and might be treated differently under this, and possibly what an economic development council might be too. I don't know, but I'm just saying there might be some different constructs that we could use for different purposes. And then finally on ProStack, one of the things we've begun to do, and I think it's very going to be a very good move, and we've done some of this last year, is we take our work plan, we divide it into the projects, and the projects then are open for anyone who's interested among the group to become a project leader or team leader. And that concept is that we then can reach out and get people from the community. So there are people who don't want to serve on a monthly committee, but they're very interested in biking, or they're very interested in, team sports or whatever it is. Playgrounds is another one we're looking at. So we can bring those people in through outreach. And it is marketing, but I think the better term here is it's outreach. Bring them in and actually have them serve on these work teams that would have a ProStack member as the leader, and it's a great way of expanding our. So my point is that there are ongoing opportunities, even in addition to just the appointed membership. So.
Yep. Okay.
I think the working group, with the reservoir worked because it was specific for one solid reason, and we're able to galvanize enough support from almost every aspect of the community and the county too.
Well,
So that worked out perfectly there. That's different than having a
And it was short-term, just to
Right.
solve an issue.
right.
Yeah.
And that worked.
I wasn't equating.
No, I-
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying that we might look at different templates for different kinds
Yeah.
of things.
For what it was, it worked perfectly. So,
Okay.
well, for what it was, one issue, specific, wide support throughout. It fulfilled its mission, basically,
Well,
to restore it, right? So,
And up front, it gave its mission and its, what the outcome was going to be, and we all knew what the process was when we
that's a
began the
perfect
working group.
example, actually, of how it can work. I mean, if we could model that in different issues, that's exactly how it's supposed to work. Community involvement, county, town, citizens, with the board, HOA, everybody, that's ideal. So if we can duplicate that in other issues, we can get a lot of things done. So, I mean, it's always good to look at what has worked and try to duplicate that in
and
life.
why it worked
Right. It was very clear.
from the beginning.
So, Merry Christmas. If I don't make it
Yes.
back before the end of the Merry Christmas to everybody.
Same
and
to you.
Happy New Year.
Same to
Yeah.
So,
We'll see you in January.
Happy New Year.
thank you. You too.
See you next year.
If the result ends quickly, if the lights are on when I'm driving back, I'll come back. I'll come back again. So.
There we go. All right, so just working then through the ordinance, as opposed to the, so does that sound fair? So starting at page 1 of the drafted ordinance.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, what was that? I was about to say something, but I thought maybe I was going to interrupt you.
No.
I don't have any comments on page 1, that's on page 2.
Yeah, I do too. Page two.
Okay.
I have comments on page 1.
Okay.
Section 2-12-20. Somehow I want to put in here that an advisory committee shall not implement any programs, processes, or policy. And I know that says any final decision-making authority. I'm not sure that's very vague, in my opinion.
Give me a for example.
I just said it. Shall not
No,
implement any
that's-
programs,
give me a-
processes, or policy.
Yeah, give me a
On
specific.
top of decision-making authority, shall not be an agent of the town, shall not have authority to
Yeah,
bind the town.
just in terms of what is there. Can you give me a for example? I guess is what I was looking for.
I just did. So
No,
what
it's
are you
spec-
getting at?
I'm just trying to for a specific, just so I can understand. Do you have a specific item?
No, I'm just going with
Okay.
the legalese here.
Okay.
So, does that include education?
I mean, if you
I
want to
guess
say
if you-
education, or whatever
So my
whatever
only
it is,
thought
I
is-
just think it's very vague. So I'd like to make it more specific.
So I know, but with that, I think it would basically prevent them from doing much outreach or anything in particular.
Do you have an example you're talking about?
Yeah, so if you wanted to hold a booth or run a specific program, like say the Historical Commission, they did a cemetery tour, I think your language would say that they couldn't do that.
But a cemetery tour is not a program, a process, or a policy.
It's a program.
You call it a program?
I guess that's,
So I
that's
guess,
what it is.
well, so then I think you're making my point for me. I'd like to make this very specific. This is very vague, and I'd like to
So
have
you,
it more
okay,
specific.
I mean, I'm not trying to argue, all I'm
No,
saying is that I think it would
No, but you
prevent them
made a
from
good
doing,
point.
doing much of anything.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not big with language.
So, yeah, for example, if ProStack were to want to go out and do a door-to-door to a neighborhood about what they thought they needed or something like that, which they've done.
Or have a work
Would they
committee
need
dig
board
things.
approval to do that before they can go out and do that?
Then,
Or have people dig things.
so I think a final decision-making authority shall not be an agent of the town. You just described that. You'd be an agent of the town if you went off and,
Yeah, that's just getting information.
so it's just, it's so vague that,
I guess I'm just trying to understand what the issue is. I don't think it's vague legally. Final decision-making authority is pretty clear. Binding the town is clear legally. But if we can help explain it, I'm happy to do that. But are we trying to go beyond that? Because I agree, the language that you've just proposed would prevent most communities from doing anything. Basically, they could meet, and that's really it.
They can meet and advise.
Right. And if that's what we want, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm just trying to get to what we're looking for.
We'd have a long list of approvals of things that came before every board. Library committee wants to have a person come and be Molly Brown, and they can't do that until they get the approval of the board to do that.
so.
Or other things that are potentially on their work plan that we approve through the budget, but apparently we have to approve again, one by one by one.
Okay, so,
Doesn't make sense to
again,
me.
this is very vague, and how do we make it
Jim, did you have a comment?
with the correct legal jargon to be more specific? What does
Well, yeah,
final
which-
decision-making authority really truly mean? What are we talking about? What is a final decision-making? Is it a program? Is it a process? Is it a policy? Agent of the town, what is that? I mean, can I
Agent
as
of
a
the
voting
town.
member of OSAC, which I'm not, but if I were,
Sure.
can I go out and
cannot-
canvass the neighborhood?
You cannot enter into a contract on behalf of the town, for example. That's what agent means legally. So if you went out as a member of OSAC and said, I want to enter into a contract to purchase paper cups, you couldn't do that. That's what this prevents.
And bind the town,
Right.
commit the town.
Exactly.
So
You can't sign a loan document on behalf of the town, anything like that. That's what that would mean.
Jim?
I make a suggestion. I
Sure.
mean, it somewhat supports what you're saying, or the ability to do what you want. And Trustee Skumach just touched on it, the work plan. I mean, you know, the example of ProStack, that was in our work plan. I mean, those community meetings, the outreach, the fact that we were going to go to door and survey was all detailed in our work plan that you approved.
correct.
And
I
I
agree
could
with that.
see, I could see a mechanism where if something's outside of the work plan,
There you
that
go.
we come back for improvement, or the liaison gets some sort of a go-ahead from the board. I mean, I'm all in favor of that. I think the work plans are been the single biggest improvement in committees since I've been here, and I think it's a fantastic mechanism, and let's use it.
I completely agree, and thank you for that. That, I think, just solidified where I'd like to see this go.
So they would do, basically then, I
So
don't
you
remember
have a plan.
reading this, but you'd touch upon something that would say, you know, would have an annual work plan that they would do, and outside of the work plan wouldn't be doing it.
So I think that would probably need two changes to this. One, under the authority section, we would say the committee has the authority, only the authority set forth in the work plan. And then under section 21230 under creation, subsection B, we talk about the establishing resolution. Is that we also want to include the work plan in that resolution, or would the work plan be a yearly document?
It'd be
Yearly,
yearly.
you just want to
document.
identify that it has to
Okay.
be approved.
Okay.
So, just so I understand, what was just said, does that mean that if something is going to change in the work plan or something's going to be added mid-year, then what you're saying, Deb, is that that's got to come for the board for approval?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Look at cost money or not.
It could be an amended work plan, or it could be specific to that one item or program or event or something like that.
Okay.
So basically, we're going to add a sentence saying the advisory committee shall have the authority set forth in the work plan as amended from time to time. Does that
Well, how do you address what the planning commission's doing? How specific is the work plan on that?
That is not falling under here, right?
Well, they have a
Commission
work
is.
plan.
It is.
It is under here.
It is
and
under
They don't have everything, they're gonna have hearings that they don't know about.
Right.
But I guess I would,
But
for
that's under
planning
a
commission,
legal-
So I guess perhaps in the work plan for the planning commission, it will be to hold all hearings as required by law.
I was
Correct.
thinking
Or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or you would just say, in addition to your work plan, anything required by,
Perfect.
Law.
Anything required by law, that's fine too. We can put that right in the ordinance, then we,
That would
then we
be
can
great.
avoid having to do it in the resolution.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, this is great. This is a lot more specific.
okay? I think people had something on page 2.
I don't have anything until 2-12-40, the membership.
I have one question about the quorum on 2-12-30, Part 4, where it says the resolution will establish what constitutes a quorum. The only reason I have that highlighted is because it was somewhat different than what Matt's cover memo said to us, where the quorum issue would be addressed in the simplified rules.
We can
And so
do,
which way we're gonna go?
and we could do that either way. I think you're right. It can be done in the basic rules of procedure. I think what I was thinking when I put in the ordinance was in cases where I think perhaps the historical commission is larger, or if it has a larger number of members, we may want to make the quorum less than a typical one more than the majority. Or more, it depends,
But why, again, would we specify it as a number instead of a percentage
Thirds
of?
or-
That's what I thought we proposed at the last meeting.
Aye.
That the quorum would be something that we could establish in here as half plus one, or whatever it required to be.
We can.
Of the active members. or the filled seats, or the something like that? Because we've got to make allowances for the vacancies.
Well, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, it seems like.
I mean, the problem is if you have 3 vacancies on a commission of 5, we just told them they can't do anything. And maybe we don't want them to do anything. Maybe if it's only a committee of 2, maybe we say you can't do anything until those vacancies are filled. I don't know.
I'm trying to remember what the quorum number for the planning commission was and where it came from. There was a set number,
It's 5.
and it's 5,
It's 5.
and it mattered not how many we had as commissioners. We have up to 9, but we got down to 7 for a long time, and it was a bind.
Yep.
And I think that was established by, I'm not sure if it was town code or statute.
I'm looking at the statute right now. It's probably in the code, because the statute only requires, it's only between 5 and 7 members, so.
So it probably was code.
Yeah. Let me
I
look.
don't even know if it still is.
I'll look now.
So if the planning commission lost 2 members, they still were required to have a quorum.
While I was on there, we had that bind.
Right.
Yeah, we had to have 5 no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, like, if we weren't gonna have a quorum, was it?
In 2-12-30, what in here makes it so that the Economics Committee is not one of those?
It's not in there because we don't have a resolution creating one.
Right.
I thought we did.
No.
And we don't even have a mission board. I mean, I don't think we do it.
No.
Don't have anything creating.
We created our own outline of what we were going to do. It wasn't anything with our board.
Right now, just to go back, sorry, to the planning commission, it's 9 members, but there is no specific mention of quorum in here anymore. So we
Okay.
took that out when we redid the code
So
because
then
we
you
had,
can go with however you want to establish it.
exactly. I mean, generally, a quorum is half plus 1.
Right.
So that's,
We could do that.
but what
That's-
do you do if it's an odd number? So what's half plus 1 in an odd number? And that's
You round
the only
up.
reason I
You
I asked
you
that
usually say,
changing
and if
wording.
it's an odd number, it's 1. You
Yeah.
round up.
Or
And that's-
greater than 50%. Right?
Right, either way.
Sure. Is that what we want? Because
Well,
I can
yeah.
figure out the
greater
wording.
than 50%
What do
will
you
work
do
for
with
me.
abstentions in that regard?
But I think it should be of the filled seats or something like that.
Yeah, a recusal, it gets a little complicated, but
Doesn't change the quorum, though.
it doesn't change the quorum for purposes of conducting the
A meeting.
It only changes the majority for purposes of the vote on a particular motion. So,
So what happens if one of the advisory committees doesn't have a quorum? What's the downside?
Can't decide.
they
They
can't
can-
do anything, but.
What
they're
can they
only
do
doing-
anyway other than discuss?
Right, I mean, they're only doing advisory things anyway, so.
Right.
But I mean, as far,
They can't vote that day. The
I
one
mean, they
time
can
they
still
do a
have
year.
discussion, there's still
Yeah.
minutes taken, it's
Yeah.
still passed on to the board.
Yeah, but recommendations can't be voted on,
Okay,
presumably.
they could take a head nod, or, I mean, if
Right,
they
I
had to,
mean-
they could get by.
yeah.
And so how often is there, a vote in an advisory committee?
Usually they're
Every
voting on
meeting.
something every meeting, yeah.
They vote on the chairman once a year.
So again,
What we have now is
I don't
more
have
than
a problem-
50, more than 50%.
I don't have a problem with
I'll craft the wording. I know what we're talking about, and I can, because I want to make sure I look at another code to make sure I cover all the bases.
If
before
there, I don't think there's an issue on ProStack, but if we're talking about RCAC doesn't have sufficient numbers, maybe we should lower the number.
That's why I think it should be of the filled seats.
Of the filled seats.
That seems clear to me.
I mean, I guess the problem that you have then is you could have a committee of 1 or 2. I'm just saying, if you have 3 vacancies
we've
on
got
a
a
committee
quorum.
of 5, do you want those 2 people, if you still want their advice, then I think it's fine to do a quorum being more than 50% of the filled seats. I just want to make sure that.
We've de facto made that by not filling them? I don't know.
It's totally up to you. You can go either way. You could say that when it goes down to 2 out of 5, they can't do anything again until we fill those vacancies. It's really up to you.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I'd be leaning the opposite direction, that if we set a number, if either it's 7 or it's 9, if we stick to that number, so a quorum would be on 9, would be 5. But that negatively impacts
Yeah.
a committee like RCAC, so how do
Or ProStack right now, with 3 vacancies.
is there 3 or 2?
No, it's two.
Either way,
Two.
it's still
But we
significant.
usually,
If
we've
that's-
had a quorum, but I agree, that's an issue, but that's, again, the reason for our earlier discussion, that we want to create this pool of people and get them in the process sooner. So I think this would actually help RCAC, too.
Why don't we just leave it, a quorum, the typical definition, and if we run into a problem, then to look at it. And I think maybe RCAC should be, it seems like it's a perennial, smaller committee in its resolution, because it's never filled, right, as far as I'm aware.
And
Not
again, you
with active
can do
people.
that, the way it was
Not
set
with
up is that
attendees.
each individual resolution would establish the
Correct.
quorum.
So
So
in
if
that
you know that you always
resolution-
have a problem on RCAC, we can do
Right.
that differently than perhaps the planning commission or
Right.
the historical commission or.
And if people are bursting at the seams to be on RCAC, then we can change the resolution to increase the numbers.
Yeah. What do you think's preventing, I know this is not the time for this discussion, what's preventing people from,
Nothing's preventing it. It's been advertised just as anyone else.
I mean, what's
We've
preventing?
changed the times of the meeting, we've changed the days of the meeting.
Just in terms of why it doesn't fill.
interest, yeah?
That's it.
It's probably just not an interest of
Believe
people in
me,
the
it's been
community.
discussed.
Yeah.
Huh. So
It's not the first
It's an
time it's
interesting
come up.
committee, I think it would be interesting to be on, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think we're at 40, is that where we're at?
40, okay, I have a 2-12-40 membership, A1. And this goes back to our earlier discussion that
Right.
I would say what I rewrote was requests for applications will be published on the town's website on an ongoing basis with increased outreach as needed to be posted for a minimum of 30 days in the event the membership panel pool has not produced a candidate. So we want to put it on the website all the time, ongoing.
And while I think we can certainly do that, I'm hesitant to put a longer requirement in here if it's going to prevent filling a vacancy. For example, if you get an immediate vacancy and you have a planning commission that needs to meet and you want to fill it, this requires 14 days minimum. If we go to 30,
Yeah.
I'm
so-
afraid that we're going to push back an application because we don't have enough people.
Yeah,
And what about the filling process? I mean, this is the recruitment, but not the, and how fast we can turn that around. And, how we're going to, I don't know. It talks about being advertised, but it doesn't talk about, and then what?
right.
And I think we should talk about that for a minute. Because it seems
I
to me one
wouldn't-
of the big drags has been
Mhm.
us wanting to have 7 people there to interview people. I think maybe if timeliness is a worry, we say at the next board meeting, or one of the next 2 board meetings, or something like that, and that's when it is, or something like that. So we keep things moving, if we're the problem.
Well, I think we'll have to include language with regard to the subcommittee that we talked about, and how that works in this process.
This,
So
the
we'll take-
subcommittee would really be part of this whole membership.
Yeah.
It should be included there somehow. There's got to be a link there.
Well, I think when you refer to the Board of Trustees, the subcommittee is part of the board. So
Yeah, I don't think we need to necessarily enable that. I mean, I don't think we have any enabling language for Finance Committee or Traffic and Safety or anything, so I think that's just a board policy it can create, so.
Which one?
Any of them.
No, which part?
Just in terms when we were talking about the subcommittee of the board.
Well, we talk about duties that the board does here could easily be performed in addition by the subcommittee
Right.
or the board. That, I don't know that we have to rewrite this.
But I wouldn't want to, if we decided the subcommittee didn't work, then would you want to have to come back and redraft this? Probably not.
Let's talk about that. I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I think the subcommittee's going to work.
Yeah.
I really do.
So I wouldn't pick them out as the only board committee that we're now going to specifically identify.
In the resolution?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Oh.
if they're encompassed by the Board of
That's
Trustees
fine.
for
Yeah.
duties.
All I'm saying is that I think that going back to this original item, that we should put in there, change the verbiage in there that says that we're going to advertise when a vacancy occurs, we need to be proactive and do the advertising on an ongoing basis. So we're always asking for applications. Doesn't matter what committee or whether there's a vacancy or not, we're asking for the application.
And we're going to mention which committees might have vacancies?
Well, in the event that we don't have, if a vacancy comes up and we don't have a pool of people available that have interest in that committee, then we go out and we step up the advertising and request for that specific committee. And then.
But I'm talking about the ongoing outreach that's going to happen all
Yeah.
the time and be stepped up or whatever. Is that ongoing research going to, or stuff going to talk about the committees that there are, or what's it going to?
We certainly can. I mean, in the website and on the e-newsletter, we can have articles about each one of the committees if we want. But we're always inviting people to be involved and let them know, here's the committees that we like involvement with. The 30 days, the addition of 30 days, in the past, we've tried to do it in a 2-week period, and I don't think that's been nearly enough time to advertise it.
It's entirely up to the board. I just want to make sure you know if there's a vacancy on the planning commission and you have to publish
Yeah.
for 30 days and your code says that, you may not
But
appoint
if we're
someone.
always
Or
publishing.
we can't do anything different?
Yeah,
if
that's
we're
the
always
thing.
What do you
publishing,
mean?
having that
I just want to make sure we know that because you may push back a development application. That's all I'm worried about. In most cases, it's advisory only,
Yeah.
but planning commission has a very specific statutory duty.
Okay,
so
so
that's what concerns me.
If that were to happen, would we know normally if there's going to be a vacancy on the planning commission? We normally would. How often does it happen where somebody just gets up and leaves, we never hear from them again? So
Well,
they would let
Or
us
resigns.
Okay, if they resign, they're
They're
probably
moving away and they resign.
okay. So we're probably going to know, and that's where the contact with the liaison and the dialogue with the chairs comes in. If we know there's going to be a vacancy, then if we don't have a pool ready for the planning commission, we step up the advertising then.
Well, and
Well
staff
before
is
they
part of it,
step
they
down.
would know.
So we're gonna have to cut this conversation
We
now.
left right here.
So, but, it doesn't seem like this meeting is going to be very long. We could certainly talk about this in reports and questions and things. The official town board meeting that's starting here in, now.
30 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Can we leave off at section 21240?
Yeah, or we
A1.
can- it's whatever.
We're not
Why don't we
done.
we'll give ourselves 15 minutes, how about that? In the
Okay.
regular board meeting, and if we can't get through that, then we'll call it a wrap, as opposed to making this 3 hours. Does that sound fair, or do people want to do it as a work session?
Yeah,
I
I'm
have
with you on that one.
I've made comments on a few, not all of them.
We all have lots of
Okay.
comments, I'm sure.
So,
Yeah,
this will be it,
the next,
Well,
something in January?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe during the regular meeting, but.
Okay. All right, take a couple of minutes then. everybody. I'd like to call to order the Town of Superior Board of Trustees and the Superior Urban Renewal Authority Board of Commissioners meeting for December 12th, 2011. And Phyllis, if you'd call the roll.
Mayor Andrew Muckle.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elia Gregoris. Trustees Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington. Lisa Skumas.
Here.
Deborah Williams.
Here.
County Manager Matt Magley.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Harden. Here.
Great. All right. Any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes.
Trustee Hansen.
I
Trustee
wanted
Williams.
to pull 7F.
Okay. Trustee Williams.
Okay, I wanted to pull 7D and 7G, as well as H. Well, actually, I just want to make a comment on H, but do I have to pull it?
Not if you're just making a
If
comment.
you're just making a comment, no.
No. Okay.
Okay.
So just 7D and G.
Any other changes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion by Trustee Skumat, second by Trustee Hansen. All in favor for approving the agenda. That brings us to item number 4, reports, questions, and issues. Who would like to start? Trustee Hansen.
Our Den 8 of PAC 278 participated in a community service project partially set up by Patrick Hammer with the Keep It Clean Partnership and Kristen Liberton. We went out Saturday morning our intention was to pick up trash along Rock Creek, up in Rock Creek, but due to the snow, we certainly didn't find a lot of trash, although we did pick up some, so we did alternative B, and that was to find animal tracks and evaluate what kind of animals they were and learn a little bit more about the impact of trash in the waterways and how it affects our animals and us. So it was a good day, it was a good service project, so it's going to lead to probably a bigger project next year with the Keep It Clean Partnership, where we get the troop and the PAC involved, and we do a community-wide outreach.
And actually, can I ask you a question? So that has to do with the waterways.
Yes.
So I think that that's a great thing to do, great model. Urban Drainage has this thing that they just feel compelled that they need to come into our community and do trash pickup also. It seems like a waste of their time, but
Really?
I bring it up every year under the budget because they budget for things like this, and I don't know why, but so I
Okay.
guess I'm just making a.
So you're asking to maybe
Soapbox
keep it
thing.
local as a volunteer effort, or?
I think keeping it local is great because we know the area.
Surprisingly, we had Kristen come into the Den meeting and present to them and let the scouts make the decision on what volunteer project they wanted to do. And they overwhelmingly said, yeah, let's go do it. And the whole time we were out for an hour and a half, they just had fun, and they really enjoyed it. So I'd say that if there's other projects like that, we can get people together.
You know, if somebody would put a letter together, maybe just describing kind of the interest in keeping the waterway clean, we could send that to Urban Drainage and just say, hey, you know, this is the kind of thing that
Okay.
we do and interested in. So,
I'm happy to, who would I work with on that?
Matt, maybe you could have somebody work on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
I attended the Historical Commission holiday party, and it was a really good time. Had a good conversation with Mayor Asti, but just that group, I can't speak more highly of a group. They're just a lot of fun and real good people. Any update on the Explore project, Matt?
No, I mean, they continue to try to finalize their financing. That's the biggest hurdle for them.
Okay.
They have one group in particular that they've been talking with, but haven't gotten any commitment from that group. So the
Okay.
broker was also going to talk to another interested party that has shown some interest in the land, but no update on that lead
Okay.
as well. So.
All right. And then I wasn't able to make the RCAC meeting, the last RCAC meeting, but I just wanted to get an update, I guess, on the surveying project that we're going to do for the trash hauling for Original Town.
Can do that one section.
Okay. Yep. And I just want to reiterate, I'd like to be involved, especially doing the door-to-door portion, reaching out to the community. And that's it.
Great. Trustee Sorelli.
Nothing really to report. Attended the Chamber's last monthly meeting, social, and last week that was quite nice. It was at the Renaissance, which is always good. Otherwise, nothing else.
Great. Trustee Skumatz.
So I attended CML policy meeting where they discussed a bunch of the tentative legislation that
Mhm.
might come forward at
Yeah.
the state level, and pretty much done, I think without fail, the committee approved what CML's positions were, or proposed positions were on every piece of legislation, which go by the mantra of no dipping into local authority and no unfunded mandates. I think the only one that had the least bit of discussion was the issue of the International Energy and Conservation Codes, where the state had previously passed a law requiring, I think everybody would go up to 2003 maybe, and the new one required, or suggested that maybe they go up to 2009's code, which we're considering adopting, I believe, a version of shortly. Boulder and a couple of other cities suggested that was something that they might consider deviating from the position, and the overwhelming majority said no change. I went to a consortium of cities meeting at which we saw an interesting presentation on water use, and thanks, Matt, for the information on our percentage of water reuse in the town being about 35%. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
We had an RCAT meeting just the other day. Jay is helping write up a summary for the board for, you'll see by email, for your discussion and consideration, and of how to go about doing a survey that will get good response from citizens in the communities being affected by the town trash project. The meeting was just Thursday night, ending at 7, so we haven't. So Jay hasn't had a chance to write up yet, but we'll see it probably tomorrow.
Do you know what's the method that will reach out?
It's better to just read and get the whole story.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
No.
I think the only meeting I attended of significance was US 36, and really the mayors and commissioners, they've moved on to talking about Northwest Rail, which doesn't really affect us directly. I would say the interesting thing that came out of that is that the cost to build the rail from where it terminates in Westminster and going to Longmont went up a little bit, from $895 million to $1.4 billion. So just off by, I don't know, 500 million or something. So obviously that caused a lot of consternation, and not sure where they think they might find that money. But I guess time will tell. And I think that's all I had. Trustee Williams?
I don't have much as well. I did notice that Golden and, well, mostly Golden, put out a emergency special meeting for Thursday, and it's on their website. And I guess they have before them proposal from the JPPHA for the Jefferson Parkway, somewhere in the neighborhood of 57 million. So probably we'll have some exciting, information by the end of the week on that front.
That 57 million comes from not Jefferson Parkway Authority.
Not
but-
just. It comes from many different
Yeah.
entities. It would come from Broomfield, Jefferson County, Dr. Cog, which is Denver Regional Council of Governments, Golden, number of different entities. I don't know all the different entities. They haven't really put that in their information, but I do know that it is many. And then also, I wanted to ask about the options for the Superior Call and Ride. when are we going to talk about those options that we might have, and when are we scheduled to meet?
I don't have anything yet because we're still working on.
That's
on
fine.
The options. I mean, as soon as possible. If we can do it in January, we will, but it shouldn't be any later in February, so.
And so we can kind of just update our residents as to what's happening with the call and ride.
Yeah, so RTD has some significant budget shortfalls, so at the RTD Board of Directors made a number of cuts and reductions in their services starting in January of 2012, and as part of one of those cuts was the Superior Call and Ride. So we are currently looking at options for the board to consider that may be able to substitute for that lost service.
And so that service ends in February, not January, though, right?
It's around that end of January, beginning of February. Yeah.
Okay. So
As
we'll
soon
see
as-
something in January.
I'm hoping. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, town manager?
I included in the digest this US 36 faster grant application that we're, so the US 36 Mayors Commissioners Coalition is working on trying to secure grant, matching money for the improvements that are going to be done on US 36. And one way to try to secure the match that we're going to have to come up with is this faster grant. And there's a match to get that grant of 20% that each of the members would have to come up with. Our Superior's portion would be $11,157, and the communities of Westminster, Louisville, Boulder, and Boulder County, I believe, have all agreed to come up with their portion. The city and county of Broomfield, City Council is discussing it this week, if they want to come up with their portion, which is $44,000. And so I just wanted to see if the board had any huge...
And the grant, the faster grant would do what?
It would secure for our improvements on US 36, $781,000 for the quarter. So it's a significant amount. of
Which I
money.
think they were going to use for improved ticketing, I believe.
Yeah,
was
for
what
RTD
for RTDA
kiosks
to get
along
onto
the
bus.
corridor. So. I think for the amount of money that we would have to contribute, I think it's worth the effort to go for this grant. But just wanted to make sure the board was okay with us committing that $11,000.
So the grant's not a given if we,
No, but we need to have the commitment from all the communities to know if we should apply for this grant for the $781,000. If that makes sense.
what are the chances are of us getting it?
Good, really good.
Yeah, I think pretty high.
Okay.
And specifically, that would do what for 36?
So it would, they would install these prepaid kiosks along the corridor for RTD riders. And they would be able to, the riders would be able to go to these kiosks and get their fares, and it's supposed to speed service along the corridor.
It's sort of like being on a subway. I mean, not
Yeah.
exactly, so that you buy your ticket before you get on the bus, and so you don't have to wait in line on the bus trying to give the bus driver change.
So we don't have that now?
No.
No.
Just for parking.
Yeah, just for parking.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's,
Yeah.
it's very deceiving.
Never charge for parking.
Some good news about the schools. They
Yeah.
ranked in the top 10 of schools in the Boulder Valley School District, so.
Superior is number 3.
Two.
Two?
Yeah.
99
number
out of
one?
100?
I forget which one was number one.
Bear
There-
Creek.
Bear Creek.
I
yeah.
thought Erie was in there at 100% too, and they didn't list them when they broke it down.
Yeah, I
In the
didn't
article
see
they
'em.
mentioned Erie.
Yeah. Oh, they might be
Erie
well,
St.
yeah, or St.
Oh,
Francis. That's
oh,
the difference there. And then El Dorado Cape was 10th, so.
Yeah, of the 15 schools that I saw, the Boulder Valley School District put out a press release. 3 of them were in the top 15, so it was pretty. Of the local schools, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
great.
Let's see. And then the holiday lighting, I think, was a success for this year. So we'll see if
I
the
can't-
HOA is interested in doing that again next year.
It's so good. I really, I wanted to bring that out and mention it. I thought that was, the white lights work really well, even with the overheads or whatever, and I think doing a few trees extremely well is a lot better than doing more trees badly or weakly. So that was really nice. Real nice turnaround, real nice cooperation.
And then the last thing I had was Rocky Mountain Fire, Station Number 5. They're getting close to wrapping everything up, but they did open up the community room for reservations, just not for birthdays yet. But as soon as they have everything complete, then I think they can open it up for birthday parties as well. But people can go to the RockyMountainFire.org website and sign up to reserve the room. So that was good news. I think that was it.
Great, thanks. Town Attorney?
Bad news on the reapportionment. We lost the case today. They issued an order with no explanation approving the maps that were submitted at the last minute last week, even though these maps had more opposition even than the last round. So.
But we're not in Douglas County, are we, in any of those? With the
No, but
Senate?
we go pretty far south. We go almost to Pike National Forest.
We'll,
Yeah, well, I'll get you the final maps.
yeah,
Great.
we'll get
That
you
would
the
be
final
great.
maps.
Yes, we'll get you the final maps. We're in House District 33, Senate District 16. We are with Eldora, if that gives you any consolation. We are with one other Boulder County community now.
Did we get cut rate ski lift?
Yeah,
tickets?
skiing perks, right?
It's the town of Eldora, which I think has
It's
10
like-
residents. So,
How many?
10.
I don't even
think.
know where it is. It must be past the ski area
It
someplace.
is, just past. If you,
Yeah.
if you,
You
it's just
keep
going
on the
up,
road,
go
you just keep
straight.
going straight.
going.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
City.
And by the way, I thought it was funny because Grand County filed a statement of opposition for being with any portion of Boulder. So, but they lost too.
I don't
So-
blame them.
Anyway, we don't know what the next step is. If there is a next step, the maps are supposed to be final on Wednesday. I'm sure that a lot of the other opponents are trying to figure out what to do right now to stop it. So I think we'll just wait. and
Namely
see.
the Republicans.
Well, thanks for the heroic fight.
Well,
And
Let's-
I was sorry that we fell on deaf ears with the county and others.
Yeah, you know, it was disappointing.
I reached out,
So
you reached out, yep.
they clearly were not
Ben wasn't interested.
No.
interested, and I didn't get a
Because the
return
Democratic-
phone
I
call
mean-
from one.
It's a
From my
Democratic,
perspective, it was the Democratic Party that put in these maps at the last minute, so Boulder County was not going to object to them.
Right,
totally
I wasn't
political.
going to mention that, but.
Right.
Yeah.
I
so,
think-
but this may not be the end of it, right?
I think it's
Well, it's
near the
supposed
end.
to be the
Until
end
the
of it
next
on Wednesday. I
reapportionment.
think people are going to try to get clever and figure out if there's something else we can do, but
And we should find out if anyone is clever and maybe jump on the bandwagon.
oh, definitely. I think we're all racking our brains at this point.
Okay.
I imagine we'll probably have a conference call of some sort tomorrow. There are a number of opponents this
But
time.
that was approved by the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
So Colorado,
Colorado.
has exhausted that, right? So we would be moving into the federal courts then?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out, if there is any next step. I'm not sure
Ah.
that there is one at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
We just literally got the court order this afternoon.
Yeah.
So I did forward it all to you. It doesn't
Thanks.
say anything.
No
It
worries.
just says the maps are approved, but I'll get you the maps.
Okay.
It was short.
It was short. We don't think there's an opinion coming. We think they're just, that's
Really?
it. They issued an order.
There's-
So,
Okay. Town clerk?
No, I don't.
Great. That brings us to item number 5, public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
George Cutler, Superior. I got this like question for you, Mayor, and I'd like an answer on this. As you know, the Shinshin people put locks on their gates up here for the south end of town. Did you notice that?
Didn't notice it, no. But
It's a property that you always thought we could get access to if there was an emergency for the south end of town, 30 households down there. It seems to me if you can get the county to put a roundabout that was unnecessary on McCaskill Boulevard as a practical, we ought to be able to get a bridge over here on 3rd Avenue. I'm back on this again.
Back on the
I want
third.
an answer. What are we to do on the south end if something happens to the bridge on 2nd Avenue? I want the whole board to give this consideration. What would that people do? I'm one that lived here to visit my brother across the street, used to have to down through the creek and through the water to get on the south end when they repaired the 2nd Avenue Bridge. tell me what's their escape route if something happened to that bridge there, one bridge on Second Avenue? Would you give me an answer?
Sure. I won't have the answer right at the moment, but I'd be
Will
happy.
you please have
Sure.
the town looking into it, please? And then I got a call that our sound system is still inadequate as far as home from a citizen that lives here. Don't those mics slide back to you like
They do.
Yeah.
Yes.
go back to you a little closer? Some stick into the mic, some don't. Average three-quarters don't.
And you know what the problem is? You have to speak like within an inch. If you don't, you can't hear.
Well, it needs improvement.
I agree. In other words, you're going,
I mean, we spent this money, we need to get it so people can hear you at home. That's all. Let's do it. Thank you.
And
Thanks.
I apologize, I forgot to turn my mic on when I spoke earlier.
Yeah, this work session is televised also, you know, and we're all sitting back in the shows. What good is it televised if you can't hear you? I mean, really.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Jim Payne, Superior. This is just an individual comment. I wanted to suggest or ask the question, is there a way to essentially take the posting bulletin board outside the front door and render that virtually online? So that when a meeting is posted, somebody can go to the website, essentially in one place, see a virtual posting board that mimics the physical board outside the building.
So we have to post by state
Right.
statute, I believe, but and I know that we put our agenda on there, but you just in terms of how it would look or something, is that?
Well, let's say it's a meeting that I know my own meetings,
Yeah.
ProStack, but if it's some other meeting, I
Oh,
want to
other
know, are they
meetings.
meeting this week? What time are they meeting?
For the committees.
Right, for
Oh.
committees or for special meetings that occur or for all kinds of things. There are always things posted there.
Yeah.
So I just think it would be,
Mhm.
in the spirit of everything else we do, to have that information available in one place.
I think we do it for the town, I believe, Phyllis. That's always online for the town board meetings, but I
Oh,
don't.
sure.
I don't
Each
think we do.
individual ProStacks.
Yeah, but I don't think we do ProStack or the
No,
advisory committees
ProStacks,
very well.
our agendas are online, but
Okay.
But you have to go looking all over the internet, all over the website to get the individual meetings. So it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion.
Sure.
Like have a
And-
link that says posted meetings or upcoming
Right.
meetings, and then
I think that actually the website, there's some things on there that probably could come up. You know, there's still, I think, how to drive through the roundabout and things like that probably could come up, and little cleaning up of the website might be helpful.
And then I can say as an HOA board member that we're getting good comments on the lights too. So
Yeah.
nothing official, but at the last meeting, we're all very pleased with the results so far.
Great. Thanks.
This is 444 South Third Avenue. I didn't get to make my comments about this work session tonight, so I will be allowed to do that at the next work session. Is that right?
Or you could do them now if you like.
Well, I have to get my list.
So you could, yeah, you can do it next time. Sure.
But ditto on what George said about Third Avenue, or excuse me, about getting across the creek on Third Avenue. Those of you that don't live down here, you have no idea. And we haven't had any floods for you to see what it could be like. And this has been going on and on and on and on and on for years. It is utterly ridiculous that no decision can be made about an exit out of the south end of Ridgeville Town.
Well, I think the plan had been to go down. It's not rail, but it's Depot Street and then connect up to McCaslin. So if they've locked that gate, then I guess that we need to go to Plan B.
And Plan B is?
That's something that we can't decide tonight, and sure we'll explore.
And so
I think
then-
Third Ave, we can talk about this, but the cost of the bridge to go across Third would be gigantic.
Would you rather have me parking in your driveway, camping out because I can't get across the creek to get into my house when the creek floods?
If it came to that, I'd be happy to have you camp out in my driveway.
I'm sure you wouldn't, Mr. Mayor.
part of the
Why
action
can't this
plan.
subject be put on the schedule for January as top priority to discuss, so that something can be done for it next summer or whatever?
Well, it probably won't happen in January, but I'm sure that we can talk about it some more. So, I mean, we've talked about it in the past, obviously, as you're aware, so we could break out that memo
So you
again.
will certainly be aware of the fact that I will be back in January asking for when they can be
I would not be
discussed.
surprised.
And this is utterly ridiculous about the microphones. If you get the lapels, like you should have spent the money to get in the first place, you wouldn't have this problem. But hearing is absolutely horrible.
And actually, the one that's the worst, it's the public mic. Nobody can hear any of
No,
that.
it's not, because we're sitting here in the audience, we can't even hear you.
No, I'm saying is that when you listen, at least when I listen on television, because I periodically look at this, you can almost can never hear the public comment. So,
Well, whatever, it needs to be approved and something else for January. But I'll be back, I'll be more than happy to be back in January and remind you that we need to discuss an exit from the original town on the south end.
Thanks.
okay. Additional public comment? Seeing none, that brings us to 6 presentations, which we don't have any this evening, and that brings us to item number 7, consent agenda. And remaining on the consent agenda tonight is approval of the minutes of the November 28th, 2011 Board of Trustees meetings, acceptance of the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee meeting, approval of liquor license renewal for Safeway store, adoption of a resolution approving an amendment to the town manager's agreement, adoption of a resolution of an agreement with AGE for the installation of soft surface trail segment connection along McCaslin Boulevard south of Rock Creek Parkway, and an adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with CoCal Landscape for landscape and snow plowing services. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda by trustee Skumat, second by trustee Hansen. Discussion. Did you have a discussion thing?
Yes, you,
You had a question or comment?
No. Oh, wait, on 7H I did,
Yeah.
yes. I just wanted to state that with the soft surface trail segment that we're approving tonight from the ridge to on McCaslin and Rock Creek Parkway is, a culmination of resident-led initiative to move forward on something that they were very strongly for, as far as a good trail connection from the ridge crossing over to the other side, on the east side of McCaslin. And I just want to let everyone know that, I really appreciated their very cordial and well-organized efforts, and it has obviously culminated in what we're going to be passing tonight as a kind of a temporary, short-term solution to helping the folks on the ridge. But I also wanted to just note that with the Transportation and Safety Committee, we have other issues that we're looking at, and this is one of the issues that came forward to us. And I just wanted to let anyone know that we are working on all those different issues, and just be patient, and your turn will be coming very soon. Thanks.
And along those lines, it sounds like maybe access egress from original town might be coming up to the Traffic and Safety Committee.
I think you're right.
With that, I think we have a motion and a second. Phyllis?
Cirilli?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Skumat?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Great, thanks. That carries. That brings us to what was D, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with RG Consulting Engineers for building inspection services. Trustee Williams.
All right. Let's see here. Let me get my notes. So I was wondering what firm provided building services, or building inspection services for Superior before 2003.
actually, those were done in-house. We had staff, full-time staff.
Okay. I'm
We
shocked.
had full-time staff person who was our chief building official and one full-time office assistant. And it just worked out that the chief building official was moving on to another opportunity, and so the decision was researched, presented to the board on whether we wanted to move that to a contract basis like we do with other services, and the board decided that that was the best option at the time, and we've just continued since then.
Okay. So the entire creation of Rock Creek was under a building inspection service by the town, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, the reason why I brought this forward was I kind of wanted to ensure that that whoever is our inspection for building codes in our town, that they are, I don't know how to say it, but just follow the letter of the law to a T as far as the code. And the reason why I say that is, and I know I'm not the only one in town. I'm sure I'm probably the, 500th person to say this, but there has been things on my home, a Rock Creek Richmond home, that were not built to code for the period that it was built. And so I just want to make sure that we can, moving forward, ensure residents that homes that are built in Superior are built to code at the time.
And I can say that Ernie Kern, who acts as our chief building official currently with RG and would continue in that capacity, does just what you mentioned. And the electrical inspector that we have under them is top-notch and follows the code to the letter.
Well, and I guess from 2003 to now, there hasn't been as much building, so there isn't really a whole lot of history to determine that. And I'm hoping, based on that.
Well, we've had, in that time period, we've had quite a few, we've had new construction.
Good.
Calmonte townhomes, and a significant amount of remodels and additions. And
So how do we measure their performance then? I can measure the performance before that, and I can say my roof was not built to code and it had to be redone. That's one measure of performance. As far as, was it built to code, and are you finding residents, homeowners that are coming forward with issues?
I have not.
Okay. So is there a way to measure their performance? Do we have that built in? Is there?
Well, I think it's based on, it's a customer service-based performance measure. It's based on complaints, issues with inspections. Those
Okay,
are.
so do we have any reports on any of that?
I have to go back and nothing comes to mind.
Okay.
It would be a good metric.
Yeah, we haven't been sued, Kendra said.
Okay, well, that,
I only know after someone sells their house.
that's not good enough for me.
I'm just saying it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
Well, in terms of the mayor's interest in metrics, that would be a good,
Yeah.
customer satisfaction survey would be, I think it would be, to see whether or not it was appropriately inspected, you'd have to hire another inspector to then go over that, so I think that
Well,
might be a little hard, but.
Actually, you probably get more complaints if the inspection was too tight
I'm sure we would.
Maybe
from
so.
homeowners.
For
we're
people that are
doing-
doing their do-it-yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just wondering how we can measure the performance, because I'm basically taking anyone's word that they're doing
Well,
well.
but they have a
And I'm not saying they're not.
track record here.
Okay. I just don't know what that track record is all I'm really saying here. I know what the track record before that, but from 2003, I don't. And so I'm just trying to do my due diligence before I vote for this. What, there's any performance measures.
There's nothing I can give you tonight.
Okay.
Trustee Skumatz?
I think what you care about is what I care about a lot, which is warranting performance, not so much measuring it, but guaranteeing it or ensuring it or something like that, and that's always of interest. I think one of the things that I think this is the right time to move to something where we only pay people for the number of jobs they perform. It's, a down economy. I think it's smart to move that outsourced, so I think good timing on that, and I like that we pay for the work they do, and that's it, no overhead, no whatever. I just wanted to I'm assuming that they have to follow whatever codes we have in place, so that if we do change our code with
Yep,
the
that's
codes we're going to be
correct.
considering, that's seamless, and that they have the training and background to warrant to that, or to perform to that standard.
Trustee Hanson?
Just want to give a shout out to Ernie. I think he does a great job. He's done some stuff for us. He's been out there, very courteous, and seems to be very thorough. And he also participated in our green environmental remodeling forum to inform residents of green
That's right.
building codes. So I think Ernie does a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment?
Thank you. George Kuffner. Ernie is very to the letter. I kind of watched over here when they done the house right next to Town Hall. And seriously, on drywall screws, they're supposed to be like within 2 inches, 3 sets, and so close from the floor. He's very meticulous about the letter. I mean, he does, the builders usually, they cringe a little, and a lot of times he has to come back. But he is good,
Great.
from what I've seen.
Glad
Great.
to hear.
Thanks.
So that's great to hear, but again, something that proves that to me, that very
Yeah.
words you're saying is really what I want to see, and I mean, I'm happy to hear it, and I agree. I'm sure he is great. I just don't want future homeowners to be in a situation of past homeowners where they're trying to get something to code for the time it was actually built.
What I can tell you is that it's information that we will get for the board. And they have a track record with us for now 8 years,
Okay.
where I've received personally no complaints on the building department and the inspection services that they provide. So I'm comfortable moving forward with this contract based on just those 2 items alone. But I hear what you're saying, I understand what you are looking for, and we will get that for you.
Also,
Okay.
just for what it's worth, I haven't received any complaints either. And it's sometimes when I have, when I have building inspectors in other communities, sometimes I get calls from attorneys who represent homeowners or who represent contractors who are complaining about the building inspectors. I've never had that here. So just to throw that out there.
Okay, and I know we're a small town, and it really sounds like we're a small town when we're talking about word of mouth here. But again, I want to see something in writing that shows me some sort of measurement or warranty or whatever it is that tells me their track record. Whatever it is, something in writing that gives me more than just 3 people's great word, if that makes sense.
It does.
Additional public comment or board comment? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion. Trustee Skumatz?
Unless you want to do.
Go ahead.
It seems like she.
I can read the, or
I'd
you
like to
reading
move
it?
Town of Superior Resolution Number R-52, Series 2011, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement with the RG Consulting Engineers for building inspections and plan review services.
Motion by Trustee Skumatz. Is there a second? Trustee Williams? Further board discussion? Let's see. I think this is, we're spending money. Sorry.
Yes.
Muckle,
Yes.
Skumatz,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes, with the caveat that we have something, some kind of performance measure.
Cirelli?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. That motion carries. That brings us to what was F, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with YMCA of Boulder for youth and adult sports services. Trustee Hanson?
Yeah, the only reason why I pulled this is that the YMCA offers so many great programs for our community, both for adults and children, that I thought we should take it out and recognize them outside of the consent agenda. And I know that staff is here tonight and also representatives from the YMCA. So I was hoping that we could get them to speak a little bit about the programs and just kind of give it a little bit more, credibility with the public.
Yeah, Martin, you want to come up?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Mark Toth, town staff. Trustee Hanson let us know a little bit earlier today that that we would be requested to present a little bit more information about this particular item on consent agenda. So we took a few moments, and the recreation manager for the town, Patrick Hammer, worked with staff from the YMCA to put together just a brief presentation to list some of the programs that we currently coordinate with the YMCA. This has been a partnership that the town has had with the YMCA since the dissolution of the districts, and it predated the districts having the YMCA host programs with the town. And it's been a great partnership over the years. The town hasn't added staff to conduct or coordinate any of adult or youth sports programs in the past. We've been able to coordinate closely with the YMCA over the years to offer a wide variety of programs. And we've been able to be responsive to what's been really popular at the time, at different times of the over the years, there's different sports that come into greater popularity. So the menu of options that we're focusing on this year include a couple of the standbys, soccer and baseball, and a couple of other programs throughout the course of the year that have been proven to be very popular. The staff of the YMCA have been great to work with to coordinate all the newsletter information, all the activity guide information that everyone receives and has received in the past, and our activity guides, and going forward we'll receive electronically as part of our electronic activity guide. And this year's no different than years in the past. You see a note at the bottom about participation. We've had over 500 citizens participate year to date in programs with the Y, and we look forward to another year with maybe even more numbers. Capitalizing on some of the outreach that we do. Were there any specific questions about participation or the number of programs that we could touch on?
I thought I read in here somewhere about 2,000, number 2,000.
Mm-hmm.
What was that number? I thought that was participants, but maybe.
2,100.
So that was, what was that number referring to? 20?
Overall participation in the programs that the Y offers.
Okay.
It's a mix of residents and folks from some of the neighboring communities, perhaps for some leagues, and also for some of the other activities that are hosted by the YMCA, and then also the YMCA hosts summer camps that are hosted at the town's pools and have hundreds of folks from all over the county.
Okay. Yeah, just in the spring and summertime, we see the fields are always being used, and I think the more we can let our residents know about the services provided, the better. So I think it's a great program, so thank you.
Great, thanks. I had just one comment, also getting back to the mayor's interest in metrics. So I'd love to see that we continue to measure the number of participants, that we survey participants, make sure that they're satisfied with the experience they have, and somehow, have some program that we can, some program to grow the programs. I was searching for another word, but you know what I mean. I'd like to see that we're able to go up in the curve of the number of people participating. So hopefully be able to work with the YMCA, trying to see what we can do. Other board comments? Public comments regarding this issue? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number R-54, Series 2011, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement with YMCA of Boulder Valley for youth and adult sports services.
Motion by Trustee Hanson. Is there a second? Trustee Williams. Further discussion? Seeing none. Phyllis?
Williams?
Yes.
Schumatz?
Yes.
Muckle?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Cirelli?
Yes.
Thanks very much. That motion carries. That brings us to what was G, adoption of a resolution approving facility use agreement with the YMCA for the use of town tennis facilities. Trustee Williams.
Yes. I wanted to know a little bit more about the tennis program that would be with the YMCA, and how does it compare in the past of the level of service and quality and variety of age and skill level.
Martin?
Thank you again, Martin Toth, town staff. The long story short is that the town has offered a wide menu of programs for youngsters, people just beginning in the sport, as well as some of the adult beginner to more expert level of programs. And everything that the town has offered consistently over the years has been a real solid menu of instruction for beginners to more expert players, as well as league tennis for competitive folks who wanted to participate in perhaps CARA or in the USTA leagues. And all the programming that has happened here historically over the last several years will be replicated going forward.
And will the level of service and quality for our town be similar to other YMCA facilities throughout their area here in Boulder Valley?
Sure, I'd like to think that they'll at least meet and probably exceed the standards because of the amount of attention and energy and focus that tennis has received traditionally in our community. And I think a lot of attention and resources will be devoted to this program.
Okay.
Other board questions? Public comment regarding that issue? Board motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Town of Superior Resolution Number R-55, Series 2011, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a facility use agreement with YMCA of Boulder Valley for the use of the town's tennis facility.
Motion by Trustee Williams. Is there a second? Trustee Skumatz. Further discussion? Seeing none. Phyllis?
Cirilli?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Buckle?
Yes.
Skumatz?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Great, thanks very much. That motion carries. That brings us to item number 8, public hearing and adoption of a resolution amending the 2011 Superior Urban Renewal Authority budget. With that, I'll open the public hearing. And Phyllis, you have proof of publication?
Yes, he did.
Thank you. Mr. Magley?
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually a positive amendment to our SURA budgets due to a larger than expected sales tax revenue coming in. We have to amend our SURA budgets. And in your cover memo, it has the SURA revenue increasing by $200,000 and then an additional $100,000 to the SURA debt service. But Paul Mills, our finance director, has some additional numbers that have changed to the positive for the town that I'm going to, Paul, do you want to come up and go over the revised numbers for the board?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Magley. Paul Nellis, town staff, mayor and trustees. As Mr. Magley identified, the item for your consideration this evening is really just a procedural item. It's to clean up any budget adjustments that we have encountered throughout the year. Staff monitors this throughout the year, and typically at the end of the fiscal year, we'll make any proposed budget adjustments for the board to consider. As Mr. Magley identified, anytime you hear budget amendment with the Superior Urban Renewal Authority, or SURA, that's typically positive, because what that means is essentially the sales tax generating businesses in the marketplace have or are projected to generate more revenues than we initially had budgeted. So that is essentially the item for your consideration this evening. What I'd like to propose, we just received today, actually, in December, October sales tax remittance from the marketplace. In that particular remittance, we received a one-time audit adjustment, positive audit adjustment of an additional $65,000 in revenue. So what I propose, and I've given to the clerk, and she's handing out now, is revisions to the numbers in the resolution you see. Essentially what those revisions are instead of, so essentially we have two pots of money. One is what we call a Superior Urban Renewal Authority Revenue Fund. So that essentially identifies all the uncommitted sales tax revenues generated from the marketplace. That particular budget in your initial packet was proposed to increase by $200,000. What I propose we do now is have the budget adjustment show a $300,000 increase. The second item is our debt service. It's a combination of a general obligation debts requirement plus an additional debt liability to the developer in the marketplace. With that particular line item, I propose instead of a $100,000 increase, a $150,000 increase as reflected in the numbers before you.
So you're amending your amendment.
So if we wait another
That-
4
that
days,
is-
can we get another more? Yeah.
So yes, Mayor, amending the amendment, and Trustee Skuma's,
Let's hope so.
Yeah, if we wait probably 5 minutes, I can give you some new numbers.
All
if
right.
you'd like. But no, these numbers will be what staff are proposing.
Questions or comments from the board? Trustee Hansen?
So you said this is something that you would track throughout the year, so do you, it's nice to see that there's a surplus and not a shortage, but, so is this something that you would kind of forecast out? You know in June that you're already ahead? Or is this something that you just learn about in December every year?
We, depending upon the scope of spending patterns or the revenue patterns in all of our town operations, many times we in fact know about it before December, but typically the approach that the board and staff have taken in the past is we will just do the adjustment at the very end of the year just to ensure we have the most accurate information available.
Okay, so this doesn't have an impact on our year-to-date increases over last year in sales tax revenue? This is...
Well, I think this is reflective, for example, the information the manager sends you in
Okay.
his weekly digest, and I believe even last week or the week before, he had noted that we were a little bit above estimated revenues.
Okay, and that's
Essentially,
what this...
is.
Got it,
That's
got
where
it.
you tie that together.
Okay, I
exactly.
thought it was...
Yeah, we just do it at the end of the year. I mean, you could do it throughout the year, but just, you don't
But
have
then
to do
you
it.
have to-
do it all the time. So just do it at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, I have, I guess, two questions. So the tranches that we're in right now, so we're sharing that 50-50 with the developers, is that where we're at?
Yeah.
And do you know how much higher we'd have to go to get to the next level? Any idea?
I don't
never
have that.
remember.
Do you have that?
So what the mayor is referencing is that there's an incentive agreement with the current developer of the marketplace, a real estate investment trust known as Brixmor out of New York. When the development agreement was originally signed with the developer, there are a series of tranches or waterfalls or different thresholds whereby within certain revenue thresholds, we share revenues either back with the developer or between the town and the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1. As the mayor had mentioned, we're in what's known as the third tranche. So essentially, any revenue over $4.3 million, and if you compare that, for example, to that SURA revenue account, we're proposing a $5 million budget increase slightly. So anytime we're in excess of $4.3 million, we share revenues 50 cents with the town in SMD1 and 50% with the developer. The next tranche, Mayor, back to your original question, I think we get to at $6.5 million.
Okay. That's
And
actually
then-
getting closer than so.
It is getting closer. Our projections are such, though, that we will have that liability paid off until
Before
we get
then.
to that fourth waterfall or tranche.
Okay.
What happens at the fourth tranche, the $6.5 million?
At the $6.5 million figure, any revenues in excess of that, so the first three tranches, revenues are divided, any revenues in excess of that go 100% to the developer. But again, we're projecting right now, we never reach that point. We will have that liability paid off before we reach that point, and then essentially the revenues would revert entirely to the town and Superior Metro District Number 1.
Great. So that was question number one, tangentially related to that. So it always causes me to have heartburn whenever I realize the percentage that we're paying on the debt related to that. Any hope that we'd be able to restructure that either with Brixmor coming into the equation now that Centro was not interested in it? Is that going to be pursued more, or any hope that we could sell bonds to pay that off at a lower, given the historically low rates that we're experiencing right now? Any hope for that?
On the first part, Brixmor, Centro is, the management team that was in place for Centro is the same team that's in place for Brixmor, and there doesn't
Even
seem
the
to be
finance
any
people.
change in their
Okay.
attitude or philosophy towards that, but Paul is looking into the possibility of general obligation bonds, and we'll have more information for you as he
Okay.
gets that information.
Great, thanks very much, appreciate it. Other board questions or comments, public comment regarding this issue? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain any motion, trustee Skumatz.
I'd like to move Superior Urban Renewal Authority Resolution Number SURA-4, Series 2011, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Superior Urban Renewal Authority approving a supplemental budget and appropriations for fiscal year 2011.
Motion by,
As amended.
As amended. Thank you.
with this one here.
This one.
Motion by Commissioner Skumatz, second by Commissioner Hanson. Discussion, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much.
Not spending money, we're getting money.
We're getting money, yes, it's all good. That brings us to item, towards the end of the meeting. Anything else to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.